And we are live.
Indeed, we are. Buy Bitcoin, not financial advice.
Yeah.
I actually did buy
Unexpected
Bitcoin.
dip. Did you?
Yeah, I bought yesterday. I knew I was going to be a little early because I was like 92 was the number, like the support, but you know how it is. Usually you push through and bounce, and sure enough, that's what we did. So, but you know, if someone was really patient, they could have snagged some down at like 89 and change. But we'll see. You know, you never know. It's just be a little, bounce, little selling relief. Who knows? I'm rooting for lower prices. So I posted on Facebook the other day. I was like, I'm buying at 92, and if it sees mid 80s, I'm buying again, and if it sees mid 70s, I'm buying again.
Fuck, Mitch makes fun of me. Mitch makes fun of me about my age, and he's posting on Facebook. What are you,
Hey,
a
listen.
boomer? What are you, a boomer?
No, they don't. Boomers don't post on Facebook. That's Gen X, baby. Gen X strong.
Boomers. You got to at least be like an Instagrammer or something. I don't know.
I'm on Instagram.
All the athletes.
Yeah, exactly.
The NBA players are on Instagram, man. I see them posting
the gram.
Yeah, I think most people are on the gram. The gram is where it's at for most people.
Cal, is the Threadcast updating for you? I keep having to manually update. I can't tell because it's a little slow.
Yeah, Cloudflare. Well, I guess it's kind of a funny timing, but Cloudflare went down earlier this morning, which basically took down like half the internet because like half the internet runs on fucking Cloudflare. So I actually posted on Twitter. I thought it was funny. Like, also, by the way, I wasn't even able to post. I had to like draft it and post later, but even X is down was down because of Cloudflare. But like last month or however long ago that was, AWS went down, which took down like half the internet.
I remember that.
And then and then Cloudflare down today took down most websites. And a lot of back-end services. So like you could go to X and you could see other people's posts, but if you tried to post something, it wasn't working. So kind of depended on your region and stuff like that too. But yeah, most of the internet went down. In my opinion, from everything I saw, and now things are kind of back, but they're slow for sure. So I'm noticing a lot of things are slow, and like on ChatGPT, you can't generate images right now because I'm sure they have a bunch of Cloudflare things related to that. So today might be a little rocky day just for internet usage in general.
Yeah, I noticed going to the profile tab on INLEO for blog posts, it was slow to load.
Yeah, I think it's just a lot of services are kind of intermittently offline. Not even just us, but like APIs and Hive and things like that are just slow. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see how the stream goes. Hopefully the stream doesn't go down at all. But so far everything's kind of getting back to normal as of the last like 2 hours.
Rafiki yet?
I am embarrassed to say I have not. But I also literally have only even used ChatGPT one time in my life. So I am actually being very much a boomer when it comes to AI.
AI noob.
I need to. I do need to start embracing it. I think I'm going. I have a reason to start using it, like a project. But yeah, I haven't used Rafiki at all. So I mean, you guys can use me as a test dummy on this call in terms of how to go about maximizing it. But I'll also be paranoid and make sure that I use my brain because I've been looking at all that research with the scans of people like using AI and not using AI, and how like the person not using AI can like recall like 90% of what they just like did and wrote, and the person using AI like can only recall like 10%, and it's like shows the brain scan where their brain's like barely lighting up. I was just like, oh my God, AI is gonna make Mike Judge truly a visionary. Idiocracy, here we come.
Yeah, it's. I'm surprised you haven't used AI more. That's kind of surprising.
No, I know it surprises everyone. I don't know. I'm becoming a grumpy old man, I guess. I don't know. So, no, I think for one, I need to even just learn how to use it, learn how to use Rafiki. As far as like, ChatGPT and stuff like that, I've used it actually to help with like legal documents, like basic operating agreements and whatnot. Like instead of like, finding a sample or whatever on the internet to leverage, you just literally have um, one of the AIs write it for you. I just put in the entity names, I put in like, the relevant information, and then it literally creates an operating agreement for me. So that's basically the only time I've really used it. But I think I'm going to leverage it even for like, when I go to write my next book, like I keep saying, I'm going to write this financial freedom book. I think I'll leverage that to help me create like a rough draft to work off of. Because at the end of the day, like I don't want an AI generated book. I still want it to be my voice. But if I can use it to create like a rough draft for me to work off of, that saves me a crap ton of time.
Yeah, I've found that that's what it's really good for, is like creating outlines. So you'd say like create this outline, and then you can feed it, like as you're writing, you can feed it stuff and it'll give you more ideas. I think I actually saw Task use Rafiki to generate blog post ideas
Nice.
on INLEO. So
Yeah, and I know like when I do the podcast with Walter, like the podcast like subject title, like he has AI generate that every time.
Yeah, I think it's important that we, and I don't know what direction you want to take this in, Cal, but just two things that I want to throw out there about Rafiki is first, I've been beating this drum for 2 years. We are not powerless to Rafiki. We are the ones actually training it. We're the ones actually feeding the database. Yes, it's pulling from other sources on the internet, but a lot of the vector database, well, actually, most of the vector database is going to be coming from what we put on Thread, on basically Hive. So the more we put on Hive, the more we are feeding in what we want to feed in. And I've talked about AI summaries, and in fact, I put an image that I copied where that has 1.3 million threads as of now. I mean, imagine if that has not been fed into Rafiki, by the way, into base. That's being scaled in. I'm sure Cal will go through the technicals with that. So imagine if there was 4 or 5 million threads from AI summaries, which are YouTube video summaries that are posted as threads using AI. That all that data would be in the vector database on a variety of topics. It would be indexed and embedded, and that would be pulled into Rafiki. The second thing that I think we need to stress, so people need to get more active and start training it. And when Cal talks about the For You feed, this should be very evident. Then the second thing is, I think we need to stress the potential or the capabilities of what's here, even though there are hallucinations, even though there are a lot of errors that it gives and it makes a lot of mistakes, which of course you want to correct back because that instantly adds to the vector database. But Cal has done some things. I've done some things like give me ideas for blog posts about topic ABC. Cal has asked for comparison and contrast between STR, Surge, and some of the other Leo's strategy coins. It can ask you to give you what's the difference between holding Bitcoin in native form versus Bitcoin ETF through BlackRock. I mean, these are some of the things you can do with Rafiki to provide more in-depth knowledge and in-depth data.
yeah, I think that's honestly a really good point. And it kind of is a broader point on Leo in general, which is like we take a lot of ideas from like the broader world, and then we build them on Leo and for Leo, and it's built in a way where like each individual, every single person that's listening to this right now and on in Leo has a direct impact on those things. Whereas for something like ChatGPT, like yeah, you can correct ChatGPT inside of a chat, but at the end of the day, like you're not fine tuning the model in any way, shape, or form. You have very little to no impact on the AI's ability to learn, for future chats, not only with you, but with other people. And Rafiki is another kind of microcosm of that, which is you actually can fine tune Rafiki, not only for yourself, but also for everyone else on Leo. And I think that that's really fascinating. And I know a lot of people have already experimented with giving Rafiki feedback and then seeing what he says future. So he actually can be trained in real time by everybody on INLEO. And I think that that's really, interesting. And then there's a lot of trickle down effects of that, which is, when you feed Rafiki data, when you simply post on threads and post blog posts and engage with other people, Rafiki is seeing all of these things and interacting and learning from every single interaction that happens, whether or not he's even involved. So I do think it's fascinating that we all have a role to play in terms of making Rafiki better. And then, when you use I think a lot of people will say, well, why would I use Rafiki over like a chat GPT or a Grok, for example? And what I would say is, imagine, that you're using Grok, and Rafiki's base model is actually Grok. And I was kind of talking a little bit yesterday about I don't remember if it was on air or not, but we're basically looking at how we can integrate multiple models to kind of have a little bit of redundancy. Because I think that, originally we were building on Llama, and then Facebook, has already talked about that they're removing, they're essentially removing open source Llama support for the newest models. So, we want access to the latest models at all times. AI moves very quickly. So with Rafiki, we've basically built it in a way where we can be modular about it and integrate models as they come out, and really kind of like layer in models. So I think that that's a really important part of Rafiki now, is that it's using Grok, for example. Rafiki's also trained on all INLEO data, which means all Hive data, Hive blockchain data. So every thread that gets posted, every blog that gets posted, every comment that's made, every upvote that's made, people you follow, like literally any data that's on the Hive blockchain, custom JSONs, for example, any data on the Hive blockchain can be fed to Rafiki. So the current iteration of Rafiki, which is now live, excuse me. We pushed them live, over the weekend, and then a few people caught on. But we were really planning to launch Rafiki today. But the first iteration is trained on the @Leo Finance blog post. So obviously, like the official updates from the team. He's also trained on the @Leo Strategy blog posts, so that he's got in-depth knowledge of all the Leo Strategy products. He's trained on my blog posts and my videos. Because obviously, like these AMAs and whatnot, I'll talk about Leo stuff. And then he's trained on the threads of those 3 accounts as well. So as we fine tune this kind of like V1, Rafiki model, we're going to fine tune him now. And then as we go, we're going to start layering in more data sets. So we've already got all those data sets, and then we can slowly integrate more as we go. So I would say probably the next data set that gets layered in is going to be all premium users threads. Then it's going to do all premium users blog posts. And then from there, we'll start to layer in, just all threads, all blog posts, all following data, all upvote data, and things like that. And we'll just go kind of one thing at a time and add them to the vector space. So as we go, Rafiki will just continue to get more and more intelligent, not only from us adding more data sets, but also from your Rafiki in threads. So every time you have an interaction with Rafiki in threads, he's learning from those interactions. He's getting feedback. He's getting fine tuned. The thing about these AI models is that fine tuning is really the hard part. That's like where a lot of the work comes in to make the model better, essentially. So we're doing a lot of fine tuning right now. That's kind of the stage we're at. So use Rafiki, and if and when he says something that's not right, just reply to him or make a thread with #feedback and say this isn't right. And then if you even include the correction, that would help a lot. So overall, so far the interactions with Rafiki are really high quality. So Task, what would you say is like your do you have like a top example of something Rafiki's done in a reply for you?
Yeah, what it is I think we need to highlight the real time learning because what it did for me yesterday is I was having a conversation. I'll give the scenario. I went and did I did a conversation about a porn star, because I didn't figure a lot of that was on Hive. And it was actually, I started using the Wikipedia page. So I was asking it about this porn star. And it started out with like, she's a Christian, then she's a Mormon. And I'm like, okay, this doesn't make a lot of sense. So I pull up the Wikipedia page and I start feeding it in information. Then I started asking it about the Miami Dolphins scores and what was the most recent score. And it botched it all up. And so I went to online and I found out the last 3 weeks scores and I put them in. And later I was talking to Rafiki and I was asking it some general stuff. And it started inserting those conversations that were tied to my account, where it said information about NFL scores, or like providing information about adult content, or like providing information about the Miami Dolphins. So it does learn in real time. And I should have gone back and asked it, well, what was the score of Miami Dolphins game on Thursday? Because I had put it in there. I didn't do that. But see, these are things that you do, like when you put in a query about, well, what was the high in the price of Bitcoin? And it goes back to 2024. Well, it's not pulling the most recent data. So if you do a query of that and say, okay, the highest price was $126,090 on, October 1st or whatever it was, and input that, it remembers it. So this is a learn as you go. And what Cal was saying about incorporating all of that older stuff on the Hive blockchain, that's going to be phased in. But when you start to talk back to Rafiki under the thread that Rafiki replies to, that's fed right back into the vector database, and within a short period of time, that data is available. So you don't have to wait for your blog posts to be integrated. Your threads, those are integrated in automatically in your conversation with Rafiki. And I think that's a huge, huge advantage.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely not like a wait and see type of thing. Like you can use Rafiki today and you can train him today on specific contexts. So that's a good point too, is like you don't need to wait for, all the threads or all the blog posts to be integrated. It's he learns in real time from each conversation, and then just as we layer in more data, you'll just notice that he gets, smarter and smarter. It's kind of like if you use ChatGPT, V1, and then use it, what are we on now? 5. If you use ChatGPT V1 versus 5.1 today, it's a completely, radically different experience. And you're going to see now that we've got Rafiki, really, I would call it Rafiki 1.0. As we release new models, it's going to be, 1.2, 1.5, and then 2, and then 3, and then 4. And as we continue to fine tune and release new models, it's going to be a very similar experience for people, which is, you've got this kind of like initial AI model, and then he just continues to get smarter and smarter with every interaction. Mitch, have you tried a Rafiki question while we've been live? I pinged Rafiki with your username.
Truth be told, I've been multitasking, scanning through loan documents, making sure they didn't mess it up. The escrow charge looks way too high. I'm like, that's like way too much money from my taxes. You know how it is. Nothing happens, and then everything happens at the same time. Where'd you ping me?
All right. Well, Rafiki here. I'll paste a screenshot of Rafiki's answer.
Hold on, I'm gonna go with notifications.
And I just said,
there you go. I see notifications.
Should Mitch use AI?
Let's see what the answer. Open. I'm trying to open it so I can see the answer. Oh, there we go. I feel like this is a loaded question.
I posted it in the Threadcast too, but
absolutely. Tools like LeoAI could supercharge Hive. Well, first of all, Rafiki, you already lost me by mentioning Hive, so like fail. I'm out. There we go. Ecosystem summaries. Example, RWA breakdowns, yield calcs. Ooh, yield calcs. You got me back with yield. What else?
Multimodal visuals for
Multimodal.
tutorials.
Fancy words. Save time on research. I like it. Boost content depth without the grind. All right, I like it. I'm already a Hive pro. Yeah, thanks for reminding me. That's like just like poking at a scar. AI is the next level up for efficiency. What's your take? Guide creation or something else? I like guide creation. Love it. So
Yeah.
how do you?
Well, that's Security Cat Guide.
You basically, for the noobs, you basically would do hashtag Ask Leo and then put said question after that.
Yeah. So to call Rafiki, you can either tag him, which is at Ask Rafiki, or you can just use hashtag Ask Leo. And if you use hashtag Ask Leo, it both work the same way. And basically, Rafiki will read your thread and any surrounding context. So if it's like embedded in a couple replies, he'll read the context around that, and then he'll reply with, obviously, if you're saying like, "Hey, Rafiki, what is the status of like Grok?" Then he'll give whatever answer he's trained on. Or if you ask him what is TGLD, he's trained on, like I said, Leo strategy posts, which includes the TGLD tokenized gold documentation. And he'll answer whatever questions you've got about tokenized gold.
Now, am I able to call him like in a question within the in the threadcast?
Yeah, you can call him anywhere on Threads.
Doing my first one, about to happen. This one's going to be hilarious. I want to see if it's even prepared for what's happening right now.
Let's see it.
I think the audience will like my question.
One thing that I want to mention, another feed that is live, and because I spoke to somebody on the back end, it'll be expanded in short order. Right now, any INLEO blog post, and I did this in the threadcast, you can take a INLEO blog post, copy the URL, say, give me a summary of this article, post the URL, and it will give a summary. And it said, at Taskmaster 4450LE, here's a quick summary of CTRPCH's post on T Gold. And it just gave a quick summary of it. So you can use this to summarize INLEO, and I don't know, maybe it does PT and other articles on Hive also. But at some point, you're going to be able to do that with, Wikipedia pages and other things to add data. But for now, you can get a quick summary of Cal's post or one of my posts or anything that's an INLEO post.
Yeah, any permalink on Hive, he can read anything, any comment link or thread link or blog post link. Obviously, preferably an INLEO link, but anything that's got a Hive permalink, he can read those, and he can do things like summarize. You could say like explain like on 5, this blog post. Give me this blog post in bullet points. Tell me this blog post as if it's a story around a campfire. You can do all of these things, so you can get very creative with what you can prompt him to do, and all of that is already possible now. So yeah, it is pretty amazing to see all the different things he can do, even just again like an E1 stage, which is, I would say, like a very like minimum viable product stage. It's only going to get significantly better from here, both just in terms of like replies, and Mitch, by the way, Rafiki already replied to you. I was just reading it, and also in terms of like access and usage. So we'll let Mitch talk about his reply, but then after that we'll talk about the future of Rafiki.
That's great. That's awesome that it leaned into it. I mean, I feel like I let it a little bit, but that's awesome. Well, sorry to all the lions out there. It sounds like going forward, it's going to be more of the same, and you're going to have to wait in anticipation for Cal to launch the AMA every week, because Rafiki said Cal's building anticipation style keeps the energy high. It shows he's deep in the LeoAI weeds, dropping bombshells like RWA updates or yield tweaks. Punctuality is solid, but a slight delay amps the hype for launches. It's all part of the show. Beta's live, so tune in whenever he drops convos, the real gold. What's your bet on today's highlight? Well, Rafiki, you are today's highlight, sir. I added the last part.
That's funny. Yeah, so you could see he leans in and he knows. So he imagine like he's read all the blog posts and everything. So it's he's already trained on all that data.
Yeah, and I think that's a key. What Cal just said is getting more of everything is in there. It's important to understand how these databases work, and everything that feeds the data, like Cal was saying. Eventually, in future versions, you're going to have, it's going to take into account what you upvoted, what you rethreaded, what you reposted, your blog posts that you have written, what posts have you commented on. All that stuff is going to be accounted for. But in the near term, obviously engaging in Rafiki answer. So if Mitch replied to what was just what Rafiki just posted to his prompt, that would feed and update Rafiki. But we also see on the back end where more tweaking takes place, more of it happens with the algorithms, more happens with the database, that it just keeps growing and growing and growing. And this is where you get a compounding or an exponential effect, is because the more data you put in, the more interaction that you have, the more stuff that's integrated, and the more types of data that comes in, or I should say topics. So for example, if Mitch put about the Los Angeles Lakers and LeBron James, then I go post something about Hollywood and movies and Los Angeles jobs in the movie industry being down, then there's going to be an embedding because there's a common denominator with Los Angeles there. And then you have celebrities. So maybe I mentioned, an actor or an actress, and LeBron's a celebrity. Then you start to branch out upon that, and well, it's a billionaire. So then you got billionaires who are mentioned, like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos. So there's the billionaire link. And then there's, of course, the Bucks, whoever now owns the Lakers. And you just keep getting these indexing that takes place. And this goal is so powerful. Been indexing the damn internet for 30 years. So you get these indexes that take place that when Rafiki starts to draw upon the vector database, it's not out there in left field. It's not hallucinating as much because it has a lot more information to draw upon. And you just think how you learn. If you know nothing about, let's say, the Congo, well, if I ask you about the Congo, what are you going to say? Nothing. But if you know the Congo's in Africa, and it's like, okay, I know Africa, you at least have that reference point. And that's what AI is doing, is they're developing these reference points in their training and then pulling in new data with the vector database to give it updated stuff. And so it doesn't have to go back to its last training model. Anybody who's used earlier versions of, let's say, Grok and Llama especially, you get back, well, I'm not trained past April 1st, 2024. Well, that's because that was the last time the training took place, and it's not adding real-world data. I guess Anthropic had that problem for a while. So these are all things that, again, engagement. Rafiki is only going to grow as fast as we grow it, and we have control over this animal. It's not like it's doing this in the wild on its own. You have to feed it. You control it. If you want stuff about Nigerian news in there, put Nigerian news on Threads. If you want stuff about Real Madrid, put stuff in there about Real Madrid. If you want stuff about physics, put stuff in about physics.
Yeah, it is what you make it, right? Like it's and again, like it ties back to your point about that you have an impact on that. Like most AI models like Anthropic or ChatGPT or whatever, you don't really have a direct impact on. But with Rafiki, it's like a homegrown model, and you can make Rafiki into what you want. You can teach him things. You can give him real time data on a lot of different stuff. And I know Task has been huge on getting getting containers filled with data for Rafiki, knowing that in the future, all that data is going to get indexed by Rafiki, and that's going to get added to his knowledge. So his knowledge base is just going to continue to expand in real time. I do believe, and I've talked about this before, that there's and it's already starting to happen, but I think it's going to get more and more intricate, is, kind of like streaming services would probably be a good example of this, but different AI models are going to start getting segmented in many ways. And a lot of it's going to come down to content protections is what I think is going to happen. So basically, and we've already seen this start to happen, websites will choose not to have their site scraped by AI. They basically tick a box and you can say, don't allow AI to scrape my website. And this is happening in a lot of different ways because people feel utilized by things like ChatGPT, without their permission. So I think this is going to continue to happen. You saw it with, for example, streaming services, where now everybody and their mother has their own streaming service, and they don't want their content on other streaming services because then it prevents them from selling people on their streaming service. And I think that this is going to start to happen where, every website, every application is all going to have their own native AI, and the usefulness of that AI is going to depend on the quality of the data that comes in and feeds it. And with Grok, I think Grok is already starting to prove that it's the best AI model out there. A lot of that has to do with the fact that Elon has X. And because he's got X, he has essentially, one of the best real-time data platforms in the world. Probably the best because it's all text-based or primarily text-based. So, he essentially has, real-time memes. He's got real-time news. When news happens, it tends to break on X first. So that makes Grok, really one of the best AI models out there, just by nature of the data that comes in is so high quality and real time. Other AI models are not going to be able to compete with that. And if they do want to compete with that, they're going to have to pay for that data. So like, for example, ChatGPT doesn't have that. Well, now they've released their Slop AI platform, social media platforms, but they don't have something like X, which is feeding just that real-time, high-quality information into the system. So they'll have to partner up and essentially pay for that data in one way or another. Very uniquely positioned where have that same exact setup where Rafiki can, essentially feed on anything posted on INLEO by both humans and agents. So the need to bring more high quality data in real time to INLEO has never been higher than it is now. In my opinion, it's just, Rafiki will continue to get better and better, and I think it's going to get more and more obvious that as data is added, Rafiki is just vastly superior to even top AI models. I think we have a unique position to compete with them because we're pulling data from Grok and then we're pulling data from INLEO in real time. I think, again, if you go back in time and think about what ChatGPT was like in version 1, I know there's been so many iterations, it's hard to remember, but ChatGPT version 1 was not trained on real-time internet data. I think he was like 6 months or even a year behind on the internet. He wasn't able to search the internet for things, and I always say he. I guess ChatGPT is non-binary, but Rafiki I like to call he. ChatGPT is the version 1 was not trained on the real-time internet, and you couldn't ask ChatGPT to search the internet. So obviously things have changed as we've gone through these like kind of 5 major iterations for ChatGPT, and similar for most other AI models. Even look at like Grok version 1 to I think they just released Grok 4.1. It's pretty crazy to see like each iteration changes the model so deeply. I mean, it's almost like you're using something completely different every time a new version comes out. So consider that this is Rafiki version 1. I think he's really good. I mean, I've already asked some pretty intricate questions like, hey, make a comparison of tokenized gold, tokenized Tesla, Surge, and LSTR. And, Rafiki spit out a really good answer, basically talking about what each one is and how it differs from the others. And I think that, answers like that, if you went to ChatGPT, yeah, you'd probably get a decent answer, but you wouldn't get a real-time, high-quality answer that's trained on the actual content from INLEO. You would get kind have like a modestly good answer in mind. So I feel like that's a nice little segue to what is the future of Rafiki. So again, this is the version 1 LLM. He's going to improve very significantly. So we're going to have like 1.1, 1.5, 2, 3, etc. So that's kind of like the core model is going to continue to get upgraded. But then there's going to be a lot of other things that we build around Rafiki, in my opinion, that really make Rafiki more and more powerful for the everyday use, and for users. So, I think like a big next iteration is going to be obviously, and this is all separate from training the model. So I've already kind of talked about how we're going to continue to feed the model, all of threads, all of blog posts, etc. But outside of the model, there's going to be a lot of other things we release. So one thing I've talked about, and it's funny because Elon started talking about this on X, which again makes me feel like I have like a bug on me from X about some of these. But feed is going to be run by Rafiki. And I've talked a little bit about this, but to keep it kind of short, the basic way it's going to work is Rafiki is going to be trained on every single thread that gets posted on INLEO in real time. Every time a thread gets posted, he adds it to his database, and he's going to have something new called a For You database. And this is only going to be for premium users just because of the inference costs, and then obviously it's a benefit to being premium on INLEO. But what he'll do is he'll basically take in every new thread and categorize it to all premium users. So like if let's say that Ahmad Manga posts something about Tesla Tesla self-driving cars, and that thread gets posted, Rafiki reads that thread, and Rafiki says, well, there's this user Taskmaster that loves Tesla and self-driving cars and AI. So Rafiki will then rank that thread for Taskmaster, and it'll say, give this thread 10 out of 10 relevance. And I'm just being very simplistic, but he'll basically say, give this thread 10 out of 10 relevance for Taskmaster. When Taskmaster goes to his For You feed, it's going to populate that thread from Ahmad Manga, because it knows, and it's going to populate it at the top because Rafiki knows that Taskmaster loves this type of content, and it ranked it very highly. Let's say that I made a thread and I talked about Tesla, but I didn't talk about AI and I didn't talk about self-driving. Rafiki might rank that a 6 out of 10, and then Ahmad Manga's will rank above mine, but this is specific for Taskmaster's For You feed. Now let's say Mitch goes to his For You feed, and he could care less about Tesla, and these threads don't even get ranked on his For You feed. He doesn't even see them, and it's because he doesn't care about that topic. So I think it's really fascinating that like that could be probably live by the end of the year, I would say, in terms of like a whole new For You feed that's actually intelligent and very high quality. If you imagine that, Rafiki will know everything you've ever done on Hive, and it'll be able to rank content based on your preferences, based on who you upvote, who you follow, who you engage with, what you post about, what you thread about. All of that data is then used to decide what threads you should see on the For You feed. So that'll be kind of like one of the next major, kind of use cases of Rafiki. I also mentioned we're going to have Rafiki in Discord, so he'll run the entire tech support operations in Discord. And if you ask something, in general chat or something like that, Rafiki will be able to reply. And he'll do so with all of the trained data, all the INLEO data and everything like that. And then outside of that, I have a bunch of other ideas in terms of Rafiki use cases. We will, I would say 99% chance, we will release a Rafiki standalone interface. That interface will look like ChatGPT. So it's like, a chat interface, and you'll be able to just chat with Rafiki directly. And then with that will be kind of like this major expansion into features. So doing things like image generation, potentially even video generation someday. And many other things. And Rafiki can actually already analyze images, but he can't create them. So, these things are just going to get, it's like I said, I can only iterate or reiterate so many times that we're like in V1 mode right now. And just try to remember what ChatGPT was like in V1, and now extrapolate that. And that's where we're headed. And we're going to get there very quickly.
When we talk about like feeding the machine, right? I know like task often is kind of, almost heading up that initiative. Is it Any Information Helps? Because like I was doing, I mean, I fell off with the travel in the last like week or two, but for a while, like I was doing kind of like a quote of the day, and it was mainly like motivational quotes. Some of them like, you know, from historical figures, many of them, you know, kind of unknown. But I was actually curious about if, you know, putting historical quotes from, you know, known historical figures was quote unquote helping feed the machine or not.
It does.
Yeah,
Yeah.
certainly it does.
Yeah. Go
I'll
ahead.
take
Pat.
Cal. You want me to take it?
No, go ahead. I talked enough.
Yeah, it does, and especially if you supplement it, Mitch. You know, just think about your own knowledge base. That's all it would take. So, let's say you have you find a quote about from somebody who's famous but a little bit obscure, and it's like some people might know that individual, but he wouldn't be on the top of most people's head. Well, you put up the quote and you use the term hashtag quotes, maybe you use the hashtag motivation, success, whatever. And then you do a quick Google search and you just grab a quick paragraph or something about the individual and post that. Well, guess what? Eventually that quote is going to be linked up with that individual and you just add it to the knowledge base. So let's say, well, he's a well-known figure, at least to Americans, but let's say you put up a quote by Andrew Jackson. So then you put up the quote, you grab a little quick Wikipedia paragraph or something from one of those type pages, and you put it on there about Andrew Jackson. Then I post something about Andrew Jackson, and then I post about a president. Then there's other things, and that's how it's built. So anything you do, but also you put, let's say hashtag it's about motivation. Put up a Tony Robbins video that I use AI summaries to some Robbins video, and I'm hashtagging that with motivation, and all of a sudden now that Andrew Jackson and all what I put up in the summaries about Tony Robbins, those are indexed in the database, and when all that goes live, and Rafiki will use that and pull on it.
Cool.
So you just start layering.
Yeah. All right. Good to know. And especially like the piece of kind of even just, you know, a blurb about that actual person, you know, in addition to the quote. So
and that's what Cal was saying is if we get some stuff that's a little bit obscure, all of a sudden we're going to have information that maybe the larger models don't have. I mean, they might have the name of the person, they might be able to give you a little quick write-up about it, but they don't have this indexing because maybe this obscure person you pull from a multitude of sources that are not known. Here's another thing, local information. So if you have local information about, let's say, a town, let's say in Medford, Oregon, or, you know, pick ABC town, you know, Valdosta, Georgia, and you know some local information about Valdosta, Georgia. Yeah, Shaggy and Grocko know about Valdosta, Georgia, but they may not know about this restaurant in Valdosta, Georgia, or the legend of this restaurant in Valdosta, Georgia, or the owners of this restaurant, the family that owned it. That's all the type of stuff that you can feed in, and it just keeps building and growing and makes our agent or our model unique compared to others.
Yeah, and that's kind of the point I was getting to also, is like the uniqueness of a model is really where all these things are headed, because every AI model is going to do the generalized things very well over time. That's just kind of naturally going to happen. But the specialized features models is where things are going to get actually more interesting, you know, in terms of what they're trained on and are capable of.
Oh, sorry. I'm going to jump in real quick because I'm actually going to dip. I gotta jump on a call here with this lender. But A, happy I can make it almost an hour. B, learned not only like how to interact with Rafiki, but also like how simple it is, and also how you can leverage it too. And then even kind of like that second layer of interacting with it. And I think that's what makes it awesome, is how powerful it is, but against how easy it is to use. So I'll certainly be using it more now that I understand the simplicity of it, and then also how to better leverage it with that next layer of information. So I appreciate the info, gentlemen, so I can do a better job feeding the machine, and then also, you know, benefiting from it as well. So good stuff. And I'll let you guys keep rolling with it. And I shall see you next week. I believe I'm around.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for coming, Mitch. Good luck with everything. And yeah, I'm glad you saw how Rafiki works, because it is really easy, and I'm happy about it. So it'll only get better, only better from here.
Cool.
One thing.
All right.
See you, Mitch.
All right. See you, Mitch.
All right. Thanks, guys. Yeah.
Thanks.
One thing that I want to stress to the Leo community, and crucial, the internet is overwhelmingly English biased. And beyond that, it's overwhelmingly US biased. The only thing that compares is the Chinese internet, but that's a closed system. And the bias is just the amount of information. You know, the companies, major media companies, the user, the internet started in the United States. The United States has been at it longer. And so when these major models, the data that they're trained on, the information that they have is American biased and English biased. What Rafiki do is we get a lot of Nigerians on high. You could submit a lot of information about you pull Nigerian YouTube videos and use AI summaries to get that data into the database. You can post headlines from your locals in Nigeria or whatever country, and this helps to feed it in and to help remove that bias and tilt things in another direction, where Rafiki then becomes an expert on, let's say, Nigeria. Or you could say this for any country that's out there. You can do it in different languages. So if there's a local Nigerian language or a local dialect, you can post language, and Rafiki will be able to feed it in and over time learn from that. We have some Brazilians. Well, feed it Portuguese, because Portuguese isn't the biggest of languages. So all of that helps, and that helps to make Rafiki unique and more serviceable for people who are in those geographic locations, people who speak those languages, as compared to the larger models, which, I mean, let's be honest, you go to Grok, most of what you see on Grok is in English. Most of what's fed into Grok is English, because Grok is, you know, X is 600 million monthly users. I would say probably 500 million of them, English is their first language. And at least them, if not 3/4 of them, from the US. The rest are from Europe. So it's a model that is going to be built based upon biases built in terms of the algorithm, but simply biases based and the geographic location, the language people speak, and the view of the world that people have. Let's be honest, Americans have a very ethnocentric, American-centric view of the world. I mean, most Americans don't realize there's a world outside the U.S. borders. And they think, well, you know, they look at their markets, they look at business, they look at the economy. It's like, you do realize there's a whole economy out there outside the U.S. economy. That's just the American mindset. So that's what bleeds into these things, just simply from the viewpoint of the data. So keep that in mind. You have influence here. You have the ability to make a difference if you get active. If not, it's going to be Taskmaster's AI model, because I'm the one putting in most of the data.
Yeah, it is what you make it. You know, it's like a choose your own adventure type of thing. Like, Rafiki's got base level training on, you know, like I said, he's basically as good as Grok on the base level. And then he's got, think about it as like 2 vector spaces. So that's how AI models work, is they have a vector space. And I would look at Rafiki as having right now 2 vector spaces. So he's got one where he's got all the Grok knowledge, and then he's got a second vector space where he's got all the, well, for now, he's got the, you know, at Leo Finance blog posts and threads, the, you know, my blog posts and threads, and then he's got Leo Strategies blog posts and threads, and soon he'll kind of slowly, one by one, integrate more. And, you know, I would just look at it as you've got 2 vector spaces, and when you ask Rafiki a question, he's pulling from both, and he assigns certain weighting to different, you know, essentially different knowledge that's inside of his vector spaces. So, like Tass was saying, like if you fill Rafiki with a bunch of information about, the Portuguese language and like something, related to it, well, he'll assign a certain weighting to that, because then when someone else comes along and asks him a question, maybe in Portuguese, then Rafiki will have an answer that is specifically, weighted based on, okay, well, he's going to say, well, I have knowledge about this from a basic level on Grok, and then I also was fed this knowledge, and then he'll assign a certain weighting to that and give the answer. And then if the answer is wrong or needs to be tuned, well, Rafiki can be trained and tuned, on the knowledge that's inside that database. So really, any and all information that's fed to Rafiki is held in the database, and then he decides what is the most relevant. Kind of like, it is a lot like the human brain. Like you can take in all sorts of information. Your brain may not remember all that information, and you will assign certain value to different pieces of information. Like you may not remember what you ate for breakfast last week, but you might remember, the birthday of someone you love, and you've chosen to find more relevant and more important to remember. Rafiki's a little different because he'll remember everything no matter what, but he will assign different values to things that he remembers, and that is really fundamentally how a vector space works. I see Master Lamp said, What am I feeding Rafiki? We're not including subscription content." So I mentioned all the things that he is trained on right now, and then he's obviously, we're adding things essentially daily, in addition to all of your conversations that you have with him and any context you provide him. We're adding other things as well. And no, there's no subscription content. So subscriber content is encrypted, and it will stay that way. So Rafiki will not see any encrypted subscriber content. He actually can't see it, even if you gave him a direct link to it, he wouldn't be able to read it, because the way we built creator subscriptions is using encrypted content on Hive. So in order to decrypt it, you actually need the keys for that, which Rafiki does not have. So no subscriber content for Rafiki.
Yeah, Ahmed said Rafiki doesn't know about him yet. Yeah, Ahmed, because the vector database hasn't been included with any user information outside of Cal, Leo Strategy, Leo Finance, the official accounts. So until they're added in, it's floating around in the dark on that. Lucio said, insert the link in the main threadcast for easy view, and it's difficult to watch. And also be on mobile, I guess, for future reference. A couple people, Master Lamps and Ahmed, mentioned the node system. And I know you talked about this in the past because, the Hive Nazis have downvoted, Rafiki to negative. It doesn't show up on the notifications. And Ahmed said you're using PT's notifications, right? I don't know what it's using, but Master Lamps asked a good question. Can it be whitelisted so it shows up on the tab? Because that's true. I mean, we engage in Rafiki, but you have to keep the tab open because the notifications get buried. So is there a way to whitelist maybe Rafiki, the official Rafiki account, on the notifications on INLEO?
Yeah, well, we talked about this a while back, but so PeakD doesn't have their own notifications. They use the same. We're pulling notifications directly from the Hive blockchain. There's a specific way that notifications are fed. The only way to make any modifications to that would be to build a notification system, which we just haven't prioritized doing. So I would say, and what I would hope is when we first released Rafiki, the initial version, he was like, I think he was setting beneficiaries to @LeoPool. The Hive police did not like that. So he got downvoted to a -6 rep score. Well, now he has beneficiaries set to null, so he's burning all the rewards. So I do believe that if he gets some votes, his rep score will increase to the point where he's seen in the notifications feeds, which I think is generally better than us building a notification system and handling it that way for a lot of different reasons. I mean, for one, like if you want to get notifications on any other interface, I think it would be good for Rafiki to show up in those places. It's also good advertising for INLEO and Rafiki in general for him to show up in those places, on other interfaces as well. So I would say just upvote and interact with him. When you upvote him, the rewards get burned. I actually saw someone ask that to Rafiki. What happens with the rewards? So whenever you upvote Rafiki, the rewards get burned. But I do think it's better if the rep score can kind of recover, and then Rafiki will show up on different UIs. Because, like, for example, on like PeakD and other Hive interfaces, they're actually hiding Rafiki. So they're censoring his posts on their interfaces. So if that rep score gets rescued, like Masterlamp said, then he'll show up in those places, including INLEO notifications. So I think that's going to be like the first try that we do. If that doesn't work, I have a few other ideas. For one, we could launch a new Rafiki account. I'd rather not do that because I like the handle. I like the handle Ask Rafiki, so I don't feel like changing that. So we'll see what happens. But I would say just feel free to upvote him if you just want to burn some rewards and help his rep score get back to normal. I think it will recover just naturally and organically, and then kind of fix that problem.
If I could, can we go back into the future, get in our DeLorean and travel
back to the
around?
future?
Well, one thing that was many, and you can expand upon this idea, is the I don't know how to phrase it because I don't remember exactly how it was phrased, but basically the utility that Rafiki will bring to users of Hive in terms of pulling information, being able to find out what you want in terms of your blog posts, find out data about your account, what you've done, locate information, find these old blog posts, find out topics you've discussed, all of this stuff. And the person who told me this, he said, this is going to be far and away the best that Hive has to offer. I think you know what I mean, what I'm referring to. I'm a little vague because A, I'm a little unclear on it, and B, I don't really want to throw out some things. But I think you know where I'm coming from on that. Could you explain a little bit about the future capabilities there and what it'll provide in terms of search and find out data and being able to get analytics on our own accounts to a much greater degree?
Sorry, you cut out for part of that. I heard the last part. What was the other? What did you say right before that?
Well, it was told to me that, and I don't want to share too much because I step on some confidence here, but basically talk about the utility that Rafiki will bring to basically Hive, that people will be able to pull analytics, information, the ability to search, find out what blog posts. The problems we have is within our accounts, it's very difficult with the tools out there to get a good firm whole grasp of what our account's done. You can't find blog posts. You can go to Google and maybe you remember the topic or some of the title you wrote 5 years ago. Maybe you don't. Maybe it shows up. Maybe it doesn't. And what I was told is that one of the future advantages to Rafiki and what it'll do is it'll be by far the most valuable tool in terms of finding out information about your account, what you've done or interacted with. You explained a little bit on the For You feed with the newer stuff coming in, but what about all this 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old plethora of data that people have created in blog posts and comments and upvotes, and what they'll be able to pull and figure out by using Rafiki future updates?
Yeah, it's a good question. Well, and it goes back to like this kind of big point that's been an issue on Hive, which is there isn't a good search functionality, and there never really has been. I think we built the best search function that there is on Hive, and it's on INLEO, and even then, it still has gaps and issues. So there really isn't a good searching functionality on Hive. Rafiki is going to completely change that. So that's another kind of future, I would say like a future feature of Rafiki. It's kind of like what I mentioned with the For You, is that you'll be able to search, and we might just replace the entire search function with a search, with Rafiki, essentially functionality. And then, Rafiki's trained on all of your blog posts going back to literally the Genesis block of Hive. So yeah, if you ask Rafiki, I think I wrote this blog post, 7 years ago, and it talked about, Tesla and what I thought about it. Can you try to find that? And he says, well, I found 3 options of blog posts within, say the last 7 years that somewhat match the description you just gave me. If you can refine it at all, I can help you narrow this down. But here's those 3 blog posts that I found. And so Rafiki will completely replace the searching functionality, in my opinion, and it will be the best search tool that there is on Hive, because he'll be trained on literally everything. He'll even be trained on things like, you could say, how many times has Cal upvoted my posts over the last 10 years or whatever, and he'll be able to pull up that number. And then another query could be like, well, which post did he up? And then it'll pull up, Rafiki will pull up whichever blog posts were upvoted the highest by me to your your username. So yeah, the search functionality will get completely replaced. And then in terms of like specific analytics on your account, I mean, you can kind of take what I just mentioned with the searching functionality and then extrapolate from there, right? Like he'll know everything you've done on Hive. Every comment, every upvote, every blog post, all that data is kind of available at his fingertips. And he'll be able to, with very high accuracy, he'll be able to answer questions or do analytics on any of that data. So where do I think that heads in terms of like changing Hive? Like I mentioned, search functionality will change drastically. Asking about any information related to your Hive account will change drastically. Asking Rafiki to say, well, analyze all the blog posts I've ever written, and I've talked about this use case before, and then create 5 new blog post topics that I could potentially write about, and then he'll essentially give you those 5 topics, and then you'll be able to decide, well, I want to write about topic number 3, and then Rafiki, you can write about topic number 3. You'll even be able to ask Rafiki to give you an outline based on the style of writing that you've exhibited in your prior blog posts. So it's pretty fascinating to imagine, like this is like an open savanna, right? Like it's literally the most open playing field ever in terms of what is possible. And Rafiki's like that base LLM, like I said. So you kind of have these 2 core ideas. You got the base LLM, and then you've got everything else that can be built on top of that. And we're just kind of at the early stage of this. So it is it's really amazing to think about where we can go from here in terms of possibilities. And I do think that having Rafiki's own interface will open up like a whole new set of use cases that we haven't really thought of yet. And by the way, Rafiki can come up with his own use cases and then tell us to build those things that whatever he needs to make them possible. I do think that at some point we'll have a co-pilot feature on INLEO. So while you're writing a blog post, for example, Rafiki can be inside the publish page and he can help you while you're writing the blog post. There's some Hive police that are listening to that and they're getting upset already. What that actually does is it will actually create less AI slop, because since Rafiki is helping inside the publisher, if you create certain parameters and say, hey, don't generate content for the user, help them as they create their own content. And we can create certain kind of, like bumper rails in a bowling alley. We can create certain, guide rails on what Rafiki is allowed to do inside the publish page, which can actually cut down on AI slop. Because right now, anybody can go to like ChatGPT and generate AI slop and then post it on Hive. And obviously the Hive police don't like that. But their definition of content is going to need to change, in my opinion, anyways. But that's a whole political discussion. But in my opinion, this will actually cut down on AI slop, and we'll be able to more accurately have human content on Hive, because if you put a Copilot in the chat with guide rails, people would be more inclined to utilize something that just makes them a better writer, as opposed to just generating something off-site and then pasting it. So I think this will actually kind of guide Hive in a direction when it comes to content. And if you look at it from a more fundamental level, Rafiki will completely change the way you use Hive, I think, in every way, shape, and form. So I'm very interested to see where we take that. And like I said, we're kind of in like that V1 era of like, Rafiki's able to be on threads and reply to your questions. And then we're going to continue to layer in more data. And then obviously, all the context you guys give him every time you have a conversation. But then as we go and as we get to, Rafiki 2 and 3 and 4 and 5, he'll not only be smarter, but he'll have features that didn't exist before. So I think it's we're at like a stepping off point. I mean, this is like a major turning point in terms of the entire INLEO platform, and what is possible. It's also going to change, for example, like LeoDex, we plan to add an AI button on LeoDex, where essentially, like if you're familiar with like a support button on most websites, there's going to be like an AI support button, and that will be powered by Rafiki. So it'll pop up a little chat window, and you can get support from Rafiki. There's also going to be, like I said, the Discord tech support will be covered by Rafiki. And then, Rafiki will have his own UI. And it's just going to be like the layers upon layers that we build from here are going to be really dramatic. And you're going to feel the impacts of that. And we haven't mentioned it, but shout out to Mike Possibly for making a lot of this stuff happen. He is the Rafiki wizard, the man behind the curtain. So things are going very well. I'm very happy with how everything's going.
Yeah, you just blew my CI, my confidential informant. You just outed him. One other future possibility, which I haven't heard mentioned, while my possibility never mentioned it. You mentioned in the past, and you kind of did with the For You feed because it builds on that same concept. But I think one of the important things, and you see this with YouTube, you see this with X, you see it with every major platform, is the recommend engine. And that's one thing that's been missing on Hive. I know there's been much Leo made attempts in the past at trying to put together recommend engines, but I think the real value comes in interaction and all numbers going up, number of blog posts viewed, number of threads viewed, number of threads engaged with. Part of that comes from the fact of having a recommend engine where if you open up a thread that has, let's say, a music video in it, it can recommend other threads with music videos. If you have a blog post about TGLD that you read, it will recommend that. If you have a thread about LSTR, it'll recommend other LSTR threads. So this is something that I think Rafiki can incorporate very easily, and over the top, a recommend engine can be built in across the entire ecosystem, not just the For You feed, but the entire ecosystem or the entire INLEO platform, I should say, that ties all this in, that as more stuff is done, it just keeps recommending new stuff to you.
Yeah, the recommend feature, I think, will be that'll be kind of one of those moments where I think people will be like, wow, like anything is possible with Rafiki. Because the capability of like a intelligent recommendation engine has never really been built. And like you mentioned, we tried to build it with the current For You feed, which is really like the early versions of social media For You, like what we used to call like algorithms for social media. That's really the current For You feed. It's like an algorithm that tries to give you the best threads that it thinks you'll like, but it does it on kind of it's kind of dumb, right? Like it's like a dumb recommendation engine, because what it's really doing is it just has like fixed parameters, and then it tries to feed you content. So that's not really like a personalized recommendation engine. The For You feed that Rafiki does will be a very personalized, recommendation engine where, kind of like TikTok, like people get sucked into TikTok because the For You recommendations are just so personalized and high quality that you just don't want to leave the platform because it just keeps showing you things you like. So that is going to happen on INLEO, and I think it will happen very soon. So, and yeah, Master Lamps came up with another good idea, which is Rafiki can place tags as a co-pilot. So yeah, like imagine that, the time you spend right now writing tags on your blog posts. Imagine if you just had a button that, like a co-pilot button on the publish page, and Rafiki, you click that button to recommend tags, and Rafiki can literally just paste in all the tags it thinks you should use on that blog post, and it knows which tags rank the best on Hive, which tags do you tend to use that get you the most upvotes, which tags tend to get the most views on Hive. So you can imagine, like, literally, like, little features like that actually add up to a really great user experience, which is like automating things that you just don't really feel like doing, or things that can be done better by AI. So, for example, like adding tags to a blog post, if Rafiki not only can read the context of the blog post you just wrote, but then also layer in the idea of, I want to optimize for visibility on Hive, which tag should I use? Well, now Rafiki can take the context of your blog post, layer in what tags get the most views, and then add those to your blog post automatically before you hit publish. So it's pretty amazing to think about, like, even just the most simple features that are possible. Rafiki will be able to do all of those, or even like clean up my bookmarks and categorize them, like little things like that. Like literally, Rafiki can do all of these things. It's going to get interesting, and we haven't even talked. We're like pretty heavily focused on the social media side of things. Haven't even talked about things like LeoDex, where you could potentially tell Rafiki, "Hey, do a dollar cost average trade on Bitcoin for me using LeoDex," and you could write that into a thread, and in theory, Rafiki could do that trade for you. And that could obviously be longer in the future, but the layers that can be built here are amazing, and it all starts with like the base LLM model, which is what is live now. So that's what launched today. I think this will be looked at as kind of like that, that really like first step for all of this stuff. But what you're going to see over the coming weeks, months, and years is just a continual iteration of more features, more data, higher quality answers, and it's just going to get crazy from here, in my opinion. We're really, I keep saying stepping off point, but I truly mean it. It's a noticeable. I'm already seeing a difference, but with Rafiki answering your questions on threads, and I posted a funny thread yesterday that, like, I'm going to save 100 hours a month of replying to people's questions, because now they can just ask Rafiki, and if here's another use case you might not have thought of, is like, if I've answered a question that someone asked on threads one time, Rafiki now knows that answer. So if then a second person comes in and asks the same question because they didn't see the original thread, Rafiki can now reformulate the answer I gave and spit it to the new user. So the trickle down effects of this are just crazy when you start to really think about them. And I know I joked and I said I'm going to save 100 hours a month. I mean, that's probably like a legitimate fact. Is like, I'm going to have so much more free time to answer one question, like Lukeel just asked, when is Leo Shorts going live again? And I could write a reply and I could say, and also just me speaking this, Rafiki is going to get trained on the transcript of this video. So I don't even actually have to reply. Rafiki will learn this as soon as the transcript is up. But Leo Shorts is dependent on 3Speaks. So, when 3Speaks, shorts are working, then Leo Shorts will work again. Rafiki now, if let's say Lukeel asks this, and let's say Ahmad Manga asks tomorrow, what's going on with Leo Shorts, Rafiki will now take the answer I just gave on air, right, like literally right here, and then spit it to Ahmad Manga. And then reference, by the way, the AMA and say, Cal answered this in the last AMA on November 18th, 2025. And it start to kind of picture out the layers as you think about that applied to everything. Things get pretty crazy pretty fast. I mean, we've seen AI kind of take over the world already in many ways. Like, every industry now has AI in some way, shape, or form. and it's not going anywhere. It's just getting more and more deeply integrated. So now that we've got Rafiki on Leo, I think you're just going to see it kind of seep its hands into everything.
Yeah, and I think this is there's 2 points that come to my mind. The first thing is the iteration. We are so early that the next iteration is going to have significant impact because we're dealing with a skeleton right now. You take a skeleton and its shin bone is bare. Well, if you cover that with flesh, that's a big difference. Now you still got a lot of ways to go, but an improvement. And that's the way it is with these iterations. Is that you get premium threads and blog posts incorporated. That's going to make a huge difference as compared to the amount of data that's in the vector database right now. But the other thing that comes to mind, Cal, is in talking about this thing called value. And people are like, well, Leo and the price and the token and the this and the that. Well, look at the market cap of Leo. What we're talking about here, having a $50 million value model that is trained on all this stuff, provides all these features and capabilities, and having a value of $50 million is nothing. We're not talking like $1 trillion like people about OpenAI. We're not talking about Grok at $200 billion. We're talking about $25 or $50 million. You do the math of what that does to the price of the Leo token. Now, I'm not saying necessarily the price will match the value because we know markets are different, but just think of what this offers and then think of the talking point. Well, what the hell is Leo? And you start to talk about LeoAI and you start to talk about the capabilities and you start to talk about this compared to X, compared to Gemini, compared to some of these others. And really, Cal said large language model. It's really a small language model that we're taking from a larger language model from Grok, from XAI, but we're building our own model with it, and we're feeding it in with every thread, with every blog post, with every comment. So what's the value of that? Leaving aside everything else. And we know AI is only going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Cal's talk about AI agents and building agents in the future and tying all this in and having the capability because we're getting away from coding and these AIs are good on how to code or are learning how to code. So we'll be able to do all kinds of different things, like Cal said, where there'll be an agent that's set up where you'll prompt it by a thread and the agent will actually be able to interact with LeoDex and say, dollar cost average me into Bitcoin once a week over the next 3 months. And it'll be able to do that for you because it's tied to your MetaMask or your control wallet or whatever is utilized. And it'll be able to do that right through LeoDex for you. These are things that often are potentialities. And from that, think about the potential value that could be in Leo token.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's crazy to look at the market cap. I think 3 or 4 million is where we're at, and just consider that there's I mean, if you look at every time I see like an AI company valuation, I'm like, holy shit, that's insane. But when you really think about the value creation that happens, it's AI is the next internet boom, right? And think about the value creation that can happen in a very short period of time. Leo. What Leo means to me, and I know I kind of every year I post a vision about Leo, and we're coming up to the end of the year, so I'm gonna have to update my vision statement on these things. By the way, I just saw Ray Montreal, who is a big Thorchain user out there, asked Rafiki based on the wise monkey in The Lion King. He indeed is. So Rafiki, I actually was watching. I think when we came up with the name of Rafiki, I was watching that Mufasa Lion King movie. But yeah, Rafiki is an AI that is the wise monkey of the Leo ecosystem. So there is no better name. Originally, we were going to call actually for years while we've been building a lot of this stuff, we've been calling it LeoAI, which doesn't really roll off the tongue very nicely. Also, Brave browser came out with something called LeoAI, and I was like, okay, it looks like we need a rebrand. So Rafiki is a fantastic name for Rafiki. Anyways, I was saying the vision of the Leo ecosystem, it really evolves every year. What I really have come to realize about Leo for me is that, especially in this world of rapid change and not only with AI but just in general, I mean, everything's always changing so fast. What Leo is to me is a kind of like a sandbox. It's a playground to be the everything business, right? Like you've got the Leo token, which represents really ownership in the entire economy that is Leo. But Leo is really its own economy of many different business ideas and businesses and community members and ideas that are converging, and Leo is meant to absorb all that economic activity, much like a country. Like a country has thousands, millions of different business lines and trading partners and individuals within the economy and local businesses and local shops, all sorts of things that are happening simultaneously that really create that economy. And I've started to look at Leo much more as an economy as opposed to a project or a crypto project or something like that. I really believe it is like its own sovereign economy at this point. And yeah, it's very tiny. It's $3 or $4 million economy. It's basically nothing. It's not even a puddle in the street. But as we grow these things and we're growing many things on many fronts, they're all designed with one core idea in mind, which I've talked about, which is net economic inflows. And if you want to build a successful economy, you need to have positive net economic inflows, which basically just means you need more money coming in than is going out. Leo has zero inflation. That is a change that happened in June of this year. Since that change, the token is up. What is it, like almost? It was almost 10x at one point. I think it's more like a 5 or 6x with the recent crypto drop. But we're still up like 5 or 6x from when those changes went into place, and we called it Leo 2.0, which is where inflation was cut to zero, and now everything is buyback driven. So if you want more rewards, if you want more anything really, the growth of the economy is how you get those things. So for INLEO's example, the more premium users there are, the more engagement there is on the site, etc. The more the daily rewards are for people to make content and engage. So these things are now all driven by very organic pressures, and that's where I see Leo continuously evolving to, is that we've built what is, in my opinion, a sovereign economy that pulls in economic inflows from many different places. LeoDex is obviously now the number one place where economic inflows. I think it will continue to be number one, and it's going to grow from there. And now we've also got things like Rafiki, where, like I said, we're going to come out with its own interface and things like that. And in order to access Rafiki's interface, which is going to have a lot of unique features, you're going to need to be premium on INLEO. So if you're kind of similar to how X is doing their premium. It's the same idea. You pay for X premium, and then you get access not only to features on X, but then you also get access to Grok. INLEO and Rafiki's interface are going to work very similarly, where you pay for premium, and that means that you get access to the Rafiki interface and all the unique features that come along with that. And then in addition, there's things like the For You feed on INLEO and extra features on INLEO that are going to be powered by Rafiki, and you'll need to be premium to get those. That should create a massive desire for a lot of people who aren't premium. I mean, I in the Threadcast right now who I see on INLEO every single day, but aren't premium. So as these new features come out, there becomes a growing desire and a growing, really a growing value proposition to become premium on INLEO, which then again creates net economic inflows. Every premium user is $10 a month that flows into the Leo economy. So I do think Rafiki will play a big role in growing the economic inflows. LeoDex is obviously the number one. It's going to keep growing. We've got actually really exciting news on LeoKit, which is basically it's basically the ability for other apps and interfaces to integrate LeoDex's APIs in order to allow swaps. So I know actually Ray Montreal, speaking of, was asked about that a few months ago. We've built something actually really incredible for LeoKit. I don't even think we're going to call it LeoKit at this point. It is completely different than things like SwapKit and DKit or some of the others that are out there. It is something completely different, and it is, like, in my opinion, a transformation of how great things like Chain and Chainflip and Maya Protocol and Rango, Relay, Near Intense, all these different protocols that we've integrated to LeoDex. These things are going to be able to go through our Leo kit, is what we're just calling it for now. But we've created something amazing for that. And I actually think that Leo kit will surpass LeoDex in terms of inflows to the Leo economy. So without really getting too much into that stuff, today has been about Rafiki, but if you take a step back, which I've kind of done, Rafiki and all these other things are built under this vision of Leo is this sovereign economy, and we're building all these different businesses, features, tools, and et cetera. And they all have one core thing in mind, which is how do they generate net economic inflows to the Leo token. So the Leo token lives at the core of all of it. And no matter what we build, whether it's Rafiki or Leo Kit or Leo Dex, all of these things contribute economic activity to the Leo token, which is really the representation of the Leo economy. So again, I kind of blended everything into my vision post that is going to come towards the end of this year, as I do every year. But things have really taken a very interesting turn for this whole ecosystem. And again, to tie it back to the ground level of what we're doing with Rafiki today, you're starting to see a lot of these things take shape. And Leo is now stepping into the AI economy in a really big way, in a bigger way than we did before. And I think it's going to grow the economic inflows significantly in many different ways, not just growing premiums, which I do think it's going to do, but I do think there's just a general engagement factor that's going to increase on INLEO, which is going to lead to a lot more economic inflows.
Yeah, and that's the important thing from a 5,000 foot view, is to understand the we'll say compounding effect, the flywheel effect of all of this. One thing I want to state and reiterate, which I've said over the years, always remember what AI is. AI equals compute plus algorithm plus data. And over time, as Cal will tell you, the amount of compute for the same amount of money is increasing. Another way of looking at it is going down. So compute is getting more and more cost effective. The cost for a million tokens today from a ChatGPT, or the cost to a ChatGPT versus what it was 2 years ago, is significantly less. So compute is going down in cost. Algorithms, he mentioned, might possibly on the bar, on proving things, on proving efficiency, on how the data is being laid down, on how the algorithms are processing, what it's focusing upon, what it's seeing. And then the final piece is the data, which comes back to the community. What data are you providing? And this compounds question, and he talks about the quotes that are put up. He puts up a quote, he puts up a synopsis or a paragraph about the person who made the quote. If somebody comes in a year later and puts up something about the person or about that person's family or about something that person did, it all ties in. So it just keeps growing. And guess what? Rafiki, its answers actually feed back into it, so it becomes a feedback loop where the synthetic data is actually feeding the training and the vector database and the further learning, which then can be enhanced by us engaging with the results. So now you got the synthetic data plus human data combined, which makes it even that much more valuable.
Yep, 100%. It really interact with Rafiki is the that's the key, is just keep interacting and don't be afraid to correct, give context. Like I said, any links, any permalinks from Hive can be fed to Rafiki. And as we, make updates to the, the back end data, you're going to see Rafiki smarter. But also as you interact with Rafiki, and like Tash was saying, he trained Rafiki on some certain data and then interacted the next day, and Rafiki remembered that stuff. So it's important to continue to interact, and that is my public service announcement as well, is just interact with Rafiki. Let me answer one last question, and then I think we kind of left things at a good place. Ray Montreal said, could LeoKit allow an integrator to shut down services like Chainflip and Rango just to keep my protocol in Thorchain? And then also LeoKit. Yeah, we'll do about LeoKit soon. I think we're going to have it live relatively soon. So I haven't really talked about this publicly yet, but the team was focused on things like perps, and then we did instant swaps. We're also looking at limit swaps right now for Thorchain. And then we've been also just really focused on UI UX development for LeoDex. So just like fixing bugs and improving the experience overall, trying to make things smoother, because we're trying to grow the volume there, and I think a smooth experience is extremely important. But the big ticket item that we're working on now on the LeoDex side of things is LeoKit. So we're now sprinting on LeoKit, and it is going to be, like I said, I think it's going to be pretty mind-blowing for people in the space. And to answer your question, you'll be able to, and this is one aspect of why I think LeoKit is going to be completely radically better than what's out there now. You'll be able to literally modify everything related to LeoKit. And I get really excited when I think about it. But you can literally disable or enable any of the protocols you want. So right now there's 6 protocols, and as we add more, all of the protocols will get added to both LeoDex and LeoKit. There's 6 protocols: Thorchain, My Protocol, Chainflip, Rango, Relay, and Near Intense. You can choose to only serve one of those. You can choose to serve 5 of those. You can choose to serve all 6. You can choose 2. You can literally choose whichever ones you want, and you can only serve those. So if you only want to be a Thorchain provider, you can only be a Thorchain provider, and same for all the others. Not only can you do that, you can also choose to only serve certain chains. Let's say that you only want Bitcoin and Ethereum swaps, and Bitcoin blockchain and Ethereum blockchain. So that would include any ERC20s. You can literally select only to serve those 2 chains and nothing else. You could say, I don't want to serve any other chains. I don't want Litecoin swaps. I don't want any other swaps whatsoever. I don't want Dash swaps. I don't want Zcash swaps. I only want Bitcoin and Ethereum. And LeoKit is going to be agnostic to what you do with all this stuff. So you can literally just choose, I want these chains, I want these protocols, I want these even assets you can choose, and literally it. So it is, in my opinion, going to be a complete, order of magnitude improvement over what's out there now. And by the way, it's going to be cheaper than all the other solutions that are out there now. And 100% of the revenue generated by LeoKit is going to go straight to Leo stakers, like how LeoDex works. And it's going to go as USDC you can claim every day. So long story short, we'll have to do a lot of content about LeoKit as it gets closer, but we are sprinting on it now. And I think it's going to be a dramatic improvement over the other solutions that are out there. And that tends to be in Leo fashion, is we take what's out there and we try to do better. And I have a vision of what LeoKit can be used for, and I already have a bunch of partners lined up that want it, that want to integrate it, because they've been asking for certain things that aren't getting built by these other teams. And LeoKit is, we're not only building those solutions, but in talking with them, I wanted to build something that would not only solve the problem that they're having, but anticipate the problems that they and other people might have in the future, and solve those from the start. Ray said, would I be able to compose a transaction if an asset is on Thorchain and my protocol? Can my customer do a swap? So you're talking about aggregation. I don't believe we'll have that in V1, but I do think in the future we'll have that. So I've talked about aggregating across protocols. So that would turn LeoKit not only into a really like a swap kit of sorts, but it would also turn it into an aggregator. And we do have an idea for that. So like I said, I don't think in VO down the road. So we'll have to do a lot of LeoKit content, when things get closer. But I'm extremely excited about it. I've been like biting my tongue, as we work on it, and things are good. But I don't want to reveal the secret sauce until we're ready. But yeah, very very excited. Thanks for the questions. Task, any final thoughts on Rafiki and the launch today before we let the people go?
We covered one question. When Leo flare after the brownout this morning?
Leo Flare. So I don't know. Maybe soon. We're going to replace Cloudflare. We're going to replace AWS. We might even just replace Amazon while we're at it. We'll have lions that deliver your packages directly to your door.
No drones.
Leo drones. There you go. I mean, it is a little bit of a joke, but it's also serious. Like what I was talking about, the vision for Leo is like whatever is fascinating, we can build it on Leo, right? Like, and in this era of AI, and it's like this. I wake up every day and I'm like, it's a really exciting time to be building stuff. I think this is the coolest time in history to be building stuff because we're right at the emergence of AI. We're not deep in the AI. AI has not already taken over everything, but we're like at the emerging stages of it. So this is the most fascinating time to build anything, in my opinion. And it is also the time where you can build everything. So things that used to not be possible even a year or 2 years or 5 years ago, those things are all possible to do today. And it's amazing. I mean, even like these, tokenized gold and all these Leo strategy products, there's an element to them, which is these things were not possible before, before tokens in general, but then also before AI and all these other things. A lot of these things were not possible before. Like Leo strategy has these AI agents that are on threads that help you manage your positions, that pay you the daily yield. That, for example, like with tokenized gold and tokenized Tesla, they're using to not only read the pricing of like the Nasdaq because it needs to read the gold price on the Nasdaq or the Tesla price on the Nasdaq, but then also read the token price of TGLD and TTSLA on LeoDex. And then it also needs to use the documentation as a guideline, the rate policy in order to enforce the rate policy every week, and then pay the dividends every day. All this stuff is driven by AI. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, we are at this converging moment of really everything. I mean, and it's all. I know it's a joke that you're saying like when Leo flare, but at the end of the day, I think we're at like this great. We're at like this great rebuilding point where like even the most even the most fringe products and services can be rebuilt and built in a more way. And a lot of it is obviously driven by AI. But you look at Rafiki and the things we're building there. I mean, we're basically building our own ChatGPT. Once we release an interface for Rafiki, that whole LLM model that we've been building, well, that just turned into ChatGPT's interface, and now you've got ChatGPT.com, but the Rafiki version, and then it leads to if that leads to 100 premium subscribers, well, now we've created $1,000 per month in net economic inflows, and now just imagine hundreds of products, services, tools that are all built, like that, with the explicit purpose of driving inflows to the Leo token. So again, very fascinated by this. I think my final PSA, I feel like I've had like 10 of them. My final PSA is that the tokenized gold presale is ongoing. Go support Leo strategy because, like I said, I think they're building economic inflows in a really amazing way. Obviously, doing so by being MicroStrategy of Leo. Instead of releasing preferred stocks like Stretch for MicroStrategy, they're releasing RWAs. Again, using a very similar model, they're creating a Leo standard where every product and service is backed by Leo. So you've got tokenized gold is backed by Leo, and then it's driven by this AI rate policy that I just mentioned. The tokenized gold pre-sale lasts until November 24th. So today is the 18th, so we got 6 days left. I think, I did see the thread today they extended the day one pre-sale bonus because of all these Cloudflare issues. So I know like BSwap is still down, but like Tribal Dex I think is up. So they extended it to midnight tonight. Will be the end of day one. So you basically have until midnight tonight Eastern time to buy and stake tokenized gold, and then you'll get the 12% APR boost. So if you haven't already picked up a little tokenized gold, go grab a little bit. I think the future of assets is going to be on chain, and I think Leo strategy is bringing an era where these assets are not only on chain but they're backed by Leo, and 100% of the profits flow to purchasing Leo off the market, which is going to drive the Leo price higher over long time frames and generate more value for this entire economy. So, grab some tokenized gold. Is my final PSA. Task, any closing thoughts?
Just what we beat the drum on this call, which I've been beating the drum on for years. Data, data, data. Engage. Use Rafiki. Post whatever you can. Use AI summaries. Use the summarized prompt on your YouTube video links. Get the data flowing in.
Absolutely. Sweet. Thanks, Task. Thanks, Mitch, who left a little bit ago. And thanks, everybody, for coming in Threadcast. We will see you guys next Tuesday for the AMA. And don't forget to use Rafiki.